Welcome back to HR Tech APAC Online 2019. Just a little bit ago, we heard from Tina Lundqvist from Fonterra, whose session will also be available on demand. Next up, we have a really exciting co-presentation from Philip Tutty, head of APAC for SAP Litmos APAC, and Brett Archer, capability development lead for SBS. First, a little bit about our speakers. First up, Philip Tutty. Philip is a business leader, entrepreneur, change agent, coach, and motivator with more than 20 years of experience in organizational transformation, leadership, and digital education. Philip has spent most of his working life in online education. Starting in the government sector, he moved to one of Australia's first publicly listed digital content companies, where he held senior roles in product management and marketing. 15 years ago, he founded an e-learning company that specialized in the design and delivery of e-learning programs. This startup rapidly grew to become a major player in the Australian e-learning industry, delivering hundreds of e-learning projects to some of Australia's best-known organizations. Philip sold his business in 2015 to Learning Seat, where he was subsequently appointed as CEO. Through a series of recent acquisitions, Philip is now the head of Litmos APAC, part of SAP. Philip brings a wealth of experience in digital education and remains passionate about the transformative power it can bring to organizations, their people, and overall success. Brett Archer, he brings more than 10 years of experience in learning design and development, leadership development, facilitation, coaching, and in implementing online learning solutions. Currently, Brett leads capability development initiatives at SBS and their award-winning People and Culture team, which involves designing, developing, and implementing key learning initiatives in the areas of leadership, careers, management, talent, and technical skills, and managing technology platforms associated with learning. At SBS, Brett's team is focused on creating amazing employee experiences, and his contributions have led to the team being named one of Australia's most innovative HR teams for the past 2 years running, and receiving the Best Leadership Development Program Award at the Australian HR Awards. So, welcome to you both. The floor is yours.
Great. Thanks very much, Mason, and thanks for that very generous introduction. I probably couldn't have written a better introduction myself if I tried. I'm just going to start off just a little bit about us, SAP Litmos, and before I sort of launch into my part of the presentation. We're a cloud learning solution business. We have a suite of about 2,500 prepackaged learning objects around customer experience, soft skills, compliance, as well as an award-winning learning management system that really trades on its ease of use, quality of content. So we specialise in fast to deploy, easy to get up and running, and simple to use learning solutions. We talk about training in the now, solutions for customer-focused enterprises, and as we know, every organisation is a customer-focused organisation, so that's us. Let me just start off with the big picture, and I just want to touch on what we're seeing now as the experience economy, why that's important, and how that's relevant to the employee experience. The experience economy has changed the way that all organisations compete. Today, organisations must listen to the beliefs, emotions, and intentions of their customers, employees, suppliers, partners, and all stakeholders. The internet, smartphones, and smart media mean that it's never been easier for customers and employees to evaluate what's great service, what's negative service, and positive and negative experiences in the workplace. We know now that 80% of consumers will choose to switch brands if they have a poor experience. 2/3 of the workforce actually report that they are disengaged, and we know that 2 million employees change jobs every 12 months. Sorry. In the meantime, about 80% of CEOs believe that they're delivering a superior customer experience. 8% of employees agree, and we've got this huge gap between what the actual experience by customers and employees is and what's actually happening. We talk about the 4 pillars of customer experience. And to win in the experience economy, organisations have got to focus on these 4 experiences: customer experience, product, employee and brand. We know that the best running organisations are fanatical about the brand, they obsess over customers, they improve every element of their employee experience, and they absolutely, utterly nail their products. And each of these pillars has an impact on the other. We know that employee behaviour can impact on brand, customers inform product, and a bad experience in one can impact on the other. So we're now facing quite significant challenges for training. In this experience economy, there's probably a lot of impacts that we in the training area need to focus on. And the first is staying relevant. For the training department, it's making sure that it's relevant to the broader areas of an organisation, to change its perspective from internal training to the broader ecosystem that organisations operate in. To understand the link between employee and customer, to see what it means that they're delivering as employee training and how that impacts on customer. And seeing training in the perspective of the bigger system, the ecosystem that organisations operate in, where it's more than just employees. It's also about partners, channels, suppliers, and that broader ecosystem that we operate in. But the other thing that we know is that the world of the learner is changing quite significantly. User expectations from a learner perspective are really growing. People are empowered to complain. Everybody's becoming a digital expert. And our concentration spans are decreasing. Microsoft has already shown us that people have an online digital attention span of 8 seconds that keeps getting shorter. And the amount of information we're being pushed out is making people overloaded in terms of information. Social media is setting expectations for information sharing. And we know that the workforce is more educated and opinionated than ever before on what they like and what they hate in terms of digital content. And the final, I suppose, part of the equation is that the traditional delivery tool, the PC, is being replaced by smart devices. And once we start to see the growth of the Internet of Things, that's going to change the environment that we're operating in as well. So how can we improve employee experience through training? I look at this through the lens of 3 areas. One's engaging e-learning and the way that we create our e-learning. One's a focus on culture. And the other one is harnessing the technology that we use. So how do we create engaging e-learning? The first thing is to design from the learner's perspective. So we need to be asking the question, what's in it for them? How do we make it relevant? How do we personalise it? You know, we've got to move away from the thinking that we have that one size fits all, because one size in the learning area often just fits one. We need to think of how we adapt the learning design to the learner. One of the things that we've worked on at Litmos has been the design of adaptive learning programs for compliance, where we only push out compliance training based on what learners' needs are. The other area we look at in terms of in creating engaging e-learning is around short micro-learning. So we know that learners' concentration spans reducing. We know that social media is setting the expectation for the delivery of training. So we need to look at short micro solutions as a way of getting content out in the most efficient and effective way. We need to use more gamification and badges. We need to find ways to bring people to the learning, and when they get there, reward them. Make it playful. One of the things that we developed with one of our partners, Honda, was a simple exercise like a mini golf game that we created for them. And we found that by bringing people in to play the game on the completion of courses, it drove up completion rates for that course quite significantly. So gamification and badges can have a really big impact on engaging learners. We need to look at creative instructional design, the use of stories, create learning in a more relevant and purposeful format, things that mean people can walk away and understand what they're learning and apply it straight away. And the final point in here is the use of video. Video is just a fantastic medium to transfer information, to build on the experience that they've had with social media. It's a very fast, efficient delivery of training. The second area that we talk about is focusing on culture. And when we talk about this, it's about how the organisation sets and reinforces expectations to learn and consume learning, how it creates positive learning experiences out of the routine, how it prioritises learning. And focusing on culture is things like getting enthusiastic and committed and passionate about the programs that we're pushing out. It's about the way that we reinforce and recognise learning. Getting managers on board. One of the things that we've found is really important is to bring mid-tier managers on board when we're rolling out training programs and make sure that they're the first to do things and start to get behind it. Incentives for training. We've used this a lot over the years where we actually reward people who complete courses, whether it's the first cohort of people who go through, whether it's individuals, but incentivising people to do their learning programs. It creates a positive culture around that program. In the same way, promoting the value of training. We've seen a lot of good experiences where we've had CEOs and senior leaders really talking about why training is important and how it's important and what value it brings to the organisation. And the final thing is really communicating your goals. And so it's placing importance on training in the context of why they're doing it, making it clear to learners where it fits into the bigger picture of an organisation. And the final part of this picture is around harnessing technology. It's around making sure that we get the right connection between the learning management system and the program design. It's making sure that those people who've been putting all the effort into designing the learning program are connecting with those that own the learning management system to make sure that the two things go out seamlessly to users. One of the things that I've found is a key issue in poor engagement, poor learner experience, has been the learner experience with the learning management system. So we design a fantastic program, we put it all together, we feel really, really good about the way it's been designed, but people struggle with the usability of the learning management system. So for learning designers, we really need to be thinking about the LMS features that support or impede engagement. What are the enrolment rules that push out training to targeted groups in response to events? So using those enrolment rules to be able to push training out for particular purposes. It's using reminder emails. It's customising those to set a positive and supporting tone rather than having a sort of a negative tone when people haven't done something. It's using things like escalation to managers, using this to support the completion of courses and reinforce the roles that managers have in trying to support their employees to get things done. Using badges and gamification in the platform if you have that. Again, using that to draw learners into the program and getting them to want to use it. Using collaborative tools. So where you do have in the learning management system any tools that enable people to work together on problem solving or work together to work their way through a program, those collaborative tools really, really build on engagement and employee success with it. Making sure that your learning management system has simple to access support. So when people need to know where to go, they know straight away how to get it and work their way through it. Be aware of scheduled downtimes and outages and make sure that we don't have a scheduled outage on the platform at a critical time in terms of the deadline to complete the course. Adopting blended learning design and leveraging tools in the LMS. It doesn't always have to be push learning out to people, but to use the other tools that the platform has. And making sure that you use the different ways that the LMS supports different learning formats. Getting that used and making sure that that's used properly. So the key message from this side of things is make friends with your LMS administrator or owner, understand how it works, and understand how that fits into your learning program. So at this point, I'll hand over to you, Brett.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Philip. And I can definitely echo your thoughts there on harnessing the LMS and the technology that's available on it, because it does play such a huge part in the employee experience. So thanks for that. My name is Brett Archer. I am from an organisation in Australia called SBS. So we are a public broadcaster. SBS stands for the Special Broadcasting Service. And since we are a public broadcaster, I do have some video content for you today. So I can't help myself. I will be playing a couple of videos for you. So Philip talked about the 4 pillars of experience, being the experience of the customer experience, the brand experience, the product experience. But I'll be focusing quite a lot on the employee experience. So just to tell you a little bit about who we are at SBS. As I said, we are a public broadcaster. We exist because of an act of government. So we basically are looking to, we operate under a charter, which is basically a commitment to all Australians. And our purpose is to inspire all Australians to explore, appreciate and celebrate our diverse world. So, and in doing so, the hope is that we are contributing to a cohesive society with multiculturalism obviously on the rise. Our purpose and charter has never been more important. So currently SBS reaches an audience of around 13.1 million people every month on television. And on average, we serve almost about 7 million unique browsers each month online. And again, an average of about 1.3 million streams each month for radio. And when we're talking about radio, we broadcast in about 68 different languages. So we are probably one of the most diverse organisations in Australia. We do make very consistent and distinctive content. We have a streaming service that's available on more platforms and devices than any other Australian broadcaster service. And we've got about 6,000 hours worth of programs on that on-demand product that we have. It's about 900 movies, and 70% of those are in languages other than English. So rather than talk much more about who we are or what we're about, I do have a little video to show you next, which talks a bit about SBS and how we're trying to make a world of difference. So I'll play that for you now.
The world is not mono. Look around.
It's not monochrome or monotone. The world is marvellously multi.
Multicoloured, multicultural, multilingual and multi-bloody dimensional.
When you look at the world this way, it makes a difference.
It's what SBS has been doing for more than 40 years.
Breaking down the barriers that divide us.
And telling a multitude of stories
That reflect, include, excite
and inspire us. The world is more multi than ever. And we celebrate that. We believe our differences don't just make a better Australia.
They make for better entertainment.
And true entertainment is a fantastic journey to somewhere different.
If you want same, then maybe this isn't for you. That's why we do things a little differently.
Tell stories with a difference.
And celebrate
The wonderful differences we share.
SBS, a world of difference.
So hopefully that sums up who we are and what we're about quite clearly to you. But now let's turn our attention from the audience that we are actually broadcasting to at SBS instead to our internal audience. So what I'm talking about here, of course, are our employees. You can see there across the top of the screen there is a banner which the department which I am involved in, our people and culture team, live and breathe every day, that we're all about creating amazing employee experiences. So that banner that you can see there is actually plastered across a giant wall behind us all in our division. So whenever anybody comes into our area of the business to see us or talk to us or consult with us, they're facing that big image saying that we create amazing employee experiences. So a little bit about our employees. We do have about 1,500 employees across locations in Australia. the majority of employees are based in Sydney and Melbourne. And we have a large proportion of contingent workers. So you can imagine people like cameramen or camera people and makeup artists and directors and radio presenters and talent as well. So it's quite a diverse mix of employees. They are digitally savvy, like in almost every organization. Employees are becoming very digitally savvy and in interacting and building even digital products every single day. They do have high expectations of content. So as you saw from that video, that was produced and created in-house, obviously. So they are surrounded by high-quality content all the time. So they come to expect that from any other content they interact with, whether it be learning or other content that they are seeing around the organization. They are pretty skeptical as well. So we have a lot of journalists working for them, and they're trained to be skeptical. They're trained to question things. So that does actually impact us in learning and development as well. When they're faced with content or learning, they're always analyzing and skeptical. So we have a high bar, that's been set to us by our employees. They are asynchronous. Trying to get everyone together at the same time is quite difficult. So we have to consider that in our learning design as well. We've got many shift workers, contractors, people working in very remote areas of the country and across the globe as well. And they're quite diverse. As I said before, we do broadcast in 68 different languages. But the employee experience, taking all of that into account, is vital if we're going to be successful. So we are quite diverse, and we do promote diversity. So I've got one more clip to show you. This is a clip from our employee value proposition. So this is what we're putting out to market, talking about inclusivity at SBS. And this is another clip that I wanted to show you in terms of what the kind of environment we're trying to avoid, I guess, at SBS. A bit of a humorous clip for you.
Oh, hi. Yeah, no, just do me some good old yoga.
I didn't know you were into yoga.
Oh, yeah, I've been doing it for years.
Should I come back later?
Yeah, I'll email you. Namaste.
No, yeah.
Yeah, we're so excited. We just painted the nursery. It's not long.
Oh, Sal, could you send me those amended documents as soon as you can, please?
Long now until the birth. So come out, baby. We want to meet you.
Huh. Your fiance's name's Justine.
What? Give me that. Oh my gosh. You're right. It's meant to say Justin.
Oh.
It's a typo.
What are you doing?
Shredding it. Justin and I can't send these out.
But...
I should really ask for my money back.
Well, we have a paper shredder just over there. Oh. Someone getting married?
So that's just a bit about the messaging that we are trying to get across to our employees, that we want to create an environment where everybody is welcome. It is inclusive. We encourage people to bring their whole self to work because that makes for a much happier and healthier environment as well. But what is our approach to learning and development? What's our aim? Well, these are some of the things that we've gone out to the business and said. So we're looking to utilize continuous learning guidelines that create solutions to business problems. So what do we mean by continuous learning? Well, that's having a look at the immediate learning need, the kind of intermediate learning need, and also career development as well, any kind of transitional learning needs that they might have. And looking beyond just delivering courses to things like, well, what resources can we provide? What experiences can we provide? Is it mentoring, coaching, games, mobile apps? It could be videos, workshops, reference materials, those kinds of things. we're also about enabling the rest of the organization. So we're not just creating content and pushing it out to them. We're trying to generate that kind of learning culture. Philip mentioned that was one of the cornerstones as well. So trying to get different areas of the business to understand that they are enabled to create their own learning in some respects as well. We do seek input from our stakeholders across the organization and co-create a lot of content as well. So getting them involved obviously helps with a whole bunch of things, but also make sure that that learning is highly relevant. We also understand and try and make visible all of the learning opportunities that we've got at SBS, whether they're under our stewardship or whether they're actually something that's been initiated by a division of SBS. And we try and surface that on our LMS as well to make sure that everybody has access to learning. So those are some of the ways that we approach learning. Now let's have a little bit of a look at a case study for us. One of the things that we do with our learning management system is try and make sure that it's available to anyone, anywhere, on any device at any time. And this slide here just shows some of the reporting that we've pulled out of our system to show you today. As you can see, our platform is being accessed from across the globe. Interestingly, though, we have a little bit of a traditional approach to the types of devices that we are consuming our learning on. So most people are still stuck on completing learning on their desktops. Only around 4.25% of people are accessing our content on mobile devices, and that may be to do with the nature of our work. We are seeing that increase, and I do see that people are actually accessing learning from their home devices as well as at work. But it's just fantastic to be able to see that kind of reporting. And we do make sure that our content is available from anywhere at any time. So hopefully we'll see those mobile numbers start to increase. Another great example of how we're trying to make sure that the learning experience is an amazing one is taking something like orientation training or induction training. I'm sure most organizations have some level of experience with this type of training. Well, at SBS, we kind of took the traditional approach of having an instructor-led environment, and we shook that up. And what we did instead was partnered new hires with somebody else from the organization, and we placed QR codes around the organization, and those QR codes would take people to video content. So if those QR codes are scanned by their personal device, they would get their own personal introduction to that area of the business from a director. And at the same time, they're orienting themselves with what can be quite a large and difficult to navigate through organization. You might be able to see from the map there, we've got studios and recording booths and all sorts of different environments. So by orienting people, that's one way that we're kind of creating amazing experiences. This is also harnessing technology, or an example of harnessing technology, which Philip mentioned earlier as well. Philip also talked about the importance of creating really engaging e-learning. So this is an example of a course that we created at SBS, which was from our legal division. So it's quite dry content, quite difficult content to actually have to go through and understand the legal ramifications for broadcasting different things for journalists. But what we did is we actually created some content that had kind of a Great Gatsby type theme. We also utilized our own talent. So this screenshot from the course, you can see there's a news article being presented on a television. That's actually one of our own news presenters presenting that piece. And we were able to capture that and put it into the e-learning. So it's highly relevant, highly engaging, entertaining sometimes as well. And that's a great example of breathing life into difficult topics. Again, that engaging e-learning is one of the pillars that Philip mentioned before. So that's just an example of how we're doing that. So I would encourage you as well to think about how can we breathe life into those kind of compliance topics or e-learning that might be a little dry or a little difficult. How can we make it engaging yet still relevant? There's a risk that by being playful you can appear childish. We don't want to do that, but we do want to make it engaging and entertaining. Here again is an example of some blended learning that we have done. This is a shot from our award-winning leadership development program. So here, I guess we're talking about focusing on the learning culture and implementing a blended approach. What you're actually looking at here is a video of some face-to-face content that we hosted. Again, we played to our strengths. At SBS, we have a couple of studio spaces where we can obviously create television programs. So why not use those for learning as well? So we would host some of our learning and development content in those settings and film it. And when we film that content, what we end up with is some really engaging e-learning that we can utilize afterwards. So just having a look at the time, I do have one more clip I might show you. This clip is around our our leadership development program. And it gives you an example of how we approach that and also the kind of quality of the content that we're having a look at. So this is something that was professionally produced, which talks about our approach to leadership development. Again, this is about making sure that there's a culture of learning and everybody's familiar with what's expected when we're having a look at leadership development.
This is our leadership model. While leadership covers many concepts, at the centre of the SBS model, we have 5 core elements. No single element is more important than the others. They are non-linear and all interconnected. Increasing your self-awareness allows you to understand others better and regulate your own behaviour. It's about being aware of how your behaviour and mental state can affect others around you. Being mindful isn't just effective, it can even change the structure of your brain and help you live longer. When you adopt a growth mindset, every task becomes an opportunity for learning. Even in daily conversation, you can help your team realise their strengths, think differently, and grow beyond their current limitations, setting them on a path to success. By setting clear goals and removing obstacles, you can help your team members to take the action required to achieve the best results. This is about both giving clarity of purpose and certainty of direction. Checking in regularly with your team removes uncertainty and keeps everyone accountable for delivery. A culture of innovation can simply be fostered by continually asking, how can this be better? We need to consider all possibilities and opportunities to stay relevant to our audiences. Clearly, the old ways are not always the best ways. To stay inspired, we need to share our experiences and influences with each other. SBS leaders achieve through their people. We spend more waking hours with our co-workers than with our friends and families. Quality relationships are essential to our ability to connect. Vulnerability is the new black, so be open and honest. Earn trust by doing what you say you're going to do. It's time you took a step back and asked yourself, am I doing my team's job for them? Or am I truly making the most of the talent and capability that's been left in my care? Your job is to enable and empower your team to achieve their goals.
There you go. So that's intended to be an example of how you can utilize video in order to create an amazing experience for your learners, and especially tapping into the culture of leadership. That was very well received. Part of the reason why we won an award was our blended approach and our use of technology and video in particular. Here is an example of how we utilize gamification on our learning management system platform. As you can see, people have got their own profile pictures, and every time they complete a course or a section of learning, they're awarded points, and people can also achieve badges as well. So this is something that I implemented, not really having much experience with it before, not knowing how it would go, but the response has been fantastic. In fact, there's a lot of competition out there with people vying to try and complete even more courses and even more learning in order to topple the top of the leaderboard there. So that's an example of how we're implementing gamification. One other tip I've got for you if you are trying to create an amazing employee experience through learning is to create learning administrators throughout the business. So in our example, we've got a sales department, for instance, who has many administrators internally in that team who are creating their own learning based on the products and sales approaches that they're taking. Other areas of the business are utilizing it as well. We've got many administrators all throughout our organization that are helping to create learning on our learning management system. So I highly encourage you to think about how you might be able to do that in your organization. Another great thing that our platform allows us to do is to rapidly create content. So on screen are a couple of example screen recording videos that were created very quickly and easily. on our learning management system again. So content doesn't have to be necessarily amazing. I spoke before how our employees are surrounded by high quality content, but rapidly created content can be just as effective, especially if it's relevant. If it's relevant to their needs, then people are willing to forgive, the microphone quality not being broadcast quality. So what's the result of our approach? Well, one of the things that we have seen is that our compliance rates, one of the things that we're very, watch very closely, and it's very important to us, is the completion rates for some of our courses which are legally required and impact the safety and well-being of our employees as well. And what we've found by taking this kind of an approach is that our compliance rates are all in the 95th percentile for all of our courses. So it's been a hard slog to actually get there. Over the course of a year, we've been implementing all sorts of different things to make sure that our compliance rates are as high as they are now. So that hopefully provided you a bit of a case study for what we do at SBS to create amazing employee experiences and through our learning and approach to employees in that regard. So that's all I had for you for my section, and now I guess we're on to questions. Are we, Mason?
We are indeed. Great co-presentation by both of you. Phenomenal presentation. So let's take some of these questions. The first question coming in from the audience is, what is the link between employee experience and customer experience?
I might take that one, Brett.
Sure.
I suppose I'll answer this question in a couple of ways. One of the things that we've found in recent times is that there's been a big shift from the old school thinking, which was customer experience or customer service was the province of one particular department or one section of an organisation. And what we realise now is that the whole organisation, every single part, whether it's finance or operations or facilities or sales or service, everybody has a role to play in the way that customers perceive the organisation and experience the organisation. So the first thing is every employee is involved in some way, shape or form in the delivery of that customer experience to customers. But the second thing I think that's happened is we're now realising that we need to enable our employees to be able to deliver a superior experience to customers. So, the old days people would say, oh, we're a customer-focused organisation and we put customer first. I think a lot of successful organisations now are saying, we focus on the employee then focuses on the customer. There's a great Richard Branson quote that said something like, you put your staff first, your customers second, your shareholders third. So, it's sort of saying we've got to enable our employees to be able to deliver that superior customer service. And if we don't do that, we're not going to be able to succeed in that sort of experience economy. So sort of two things. It's taking a very broad view about who interacts with customers, but also having that view that we need to invest in our employees because that is then going to deliver the sort of service that people expect.
All right, a quick reminder to our audience, you can submit questions now. The next question that we have, when you mentioned adaptive learning, what does that mean?
I think that one's for you, Phil.
I think it might be. So I'll just sort of go back into a bit of an example. One of our core suites of training is our compliance suite. So we work with organisations to help them de-risk themselves by focusing on appropriate workplace behaviour. And we have a suite of courses that cover off sort of common compliance issues like bullying and sexual harassment, work health and safety and the like. One of the issues that organisations have is when they're pushing out regular training like this, and I'm sure Brett has the same experience, people get resentful of the fact that they're doing the same course time and time again. And I think the other issue that we have in organisations is that the time it takes to reach that level of compliance is very, very expensive. So, taking people off productive time and putting them through a 30-minute course or a suite of 30-minute courses has a high cost to organisations. So we've received a lot of feedback from our clients to say, is there a way that we can condense training or at least recognise that learners know some things and don't need to go over old training content again? So we developed a technology in-house, our adaptive learning technology, that enables learners when they go into a course to be able to answer a suite of questions, and then based on whether they are correct or incorrect in the answers that they provide, the training course will push out content specific to those things that they haven't already covered off. And the beauty of this in a compliance setting is that we can deliver a 30-minute compliance training course in 5 or 10 minutes. And from the learner's perspective, they actually feel better about doing it because they're being acknowledged that they understand some things and don't need to rehash old content. So this thing about adapting the learning, adapting the content to what the learners actually need to do, was a real game changer for us in the market. And I think that sort of technology, and it's available, people can look at similar ways of pushing it out. It really does increase that level of engagement for learners because they don't feel that they're being taught things that they don't need to learn.
Okay, some more questions coming in. Are there any critical employee-centric metrics for employee development in the hire to retire cycle?
Yeah, well, I can talk about that from the SBS perspective. So there are a few things that we kind of look at, one of which might be a speed to competency. So yes, compliance training is really important. Obviously, we have an obligation to our employees to make sure that we provide them with the training they need to be safe and have a high level of well-being. But speed to competency is one of the things that we look at in terms of a metric for employee development. How quickly can they actually get up and running and start, developing or delivering or whatever it is that they're doing in their roles. One of the other things that we have a look at SBS is engagement. So having a look at levels of engagement within the organisation is something that a lot of companies do, obviously, and it's a great metric for how the employee experience is playing out for our employees. If they're having a great experience, then obviously they are able to perform their role and get on with their job in a much better way. So engagement is one of the things that we look at quite closely. And then I guess the third would be having a look at career development. So having a look at our talent metrics, so having a review of talent within teams and seeing whether people are earmarked for succession throughout the business, other roles they might be able to do, whether they're an emerging leader, those kinds of things. So those are just some examples of the metrics we have a look at for employee development from hire to retire.
All right, you mentioned that at SBS you're creating amazing employee experiences. Why is that so important for the people and culture team?
Yeah, look, for our team, it is crucial because I guess touching on what Phil mentioned before, that the organisations are going from a focus on customers to a focus on employees. For us, we're very much focused on our customers, which is, of course, our audiences in Australia, but really that's the whole Australian population for us, so that includes our employees by extension. But if you can create an amazing employee experience, you have a direct impact on the well-being of that person. They then go out into society and contribute there as well. So, you can imagine, I'm not sure if anyone on the line has been working for an organisation in the past that they haven't, really been that engaged or haven't found it to be an amazing experience. That impacts on all sorts of different areas of your life and certainly impacts on your performance while you're at work as well. So creating amazing employee experience is something that we're quite passionate about, and we do see real business results from that. Higher engaged, more productive employees, people, being retained for longer, so they're working with us in our organisation for longer, better tenure, and of course that results in a great reputation for our organisation as well. So when it comes to talent, bringing talent into the organisation becomes easier as well if they're having an amazing experience internally.
All right, another question. How do you measure the efficiency of the learning program from an employee perspective?
What do you reckon, Phil? Or should I take that one? So measuring the effectiveness of...
You start on that, and I'll chuck in something at the end, Brett.
Sure. So measuring the efficiency from an employee perspective. So I guess employees are concerned with how long a course will take them away from their role. However, if the content of the course is highly relevant and highly worthwhile to them, what we find, at least at SBS, is that people are much more willing to spend their valuable time on a piece of development as long as it's relevant and they see value to them. So that's one of the major things that you've got to communicate in any kind of course context, is what the value and the relevancy of that is and why they should be spending their time there. Then, of course, we do evaluate the program, whether it be based on employee feedback or whether it be based on whether they're actually taking that learning and implementing it back into the workplace. If that's happening, if we're seeing shifts in behaviour, which we saw in our award-winning leadership development program, we saw a shift in the metrics that we measured leaders by, which was kind of a 180 of the employee experience, asking their employees whether managers were actually behaving in a certain way. That was one way that we kind of measured that experience. So those are the couple of things I'd probably say on that one. How about you, Phil?
Yeah, look, probably what I've seen a lot of is people are looking for really short-term results on the time that they spend in training. And you talked about speed to competency before, Brett. It's a critical thing for people when they're putting in the time to do a training program. If they can apply the knowledge or the experience or anything that they get out of that course immediately to their performance of their task, they'll rate that much more highly in terms of an investment to them. And I agree with you that it doesn't always mean things have to be delivered, in sort of micro sizes. One of our biggest clients a few years ago was one of Australia's biggest retailers, and we found we delivered a whole suite of product training courses to them. And we were plotting completion times and time online that people were doing there, and the time that they were spending, the peak time for learners was from about 9 o'clock to 11:30 at night. So people are prepared to spend the time and invest in their own learning if they can go to work the following day and be able to answer a question from a customer or perform a task that they couldn't perform before. So that ROI is, like, people will sometimes take a long-term view, but if they can apply something immediately and see the immediate benefit, I think they'll rate and value the training program a lot higher if they can apply what they learn immediately.
All right, so let's wrap it up there. That ends our session for today. Thank you so much to Brett and Philip. Fantastic presentation today.
Thanks, Mason, and thanks for everyone on the call as well.
Thanks a lot, Brett. Fantastic job.
All right, everyone. Just to recap today, we had 4 great presentations. First up, we had Dr. Celia Herbert, Head of Employee Experience Advisory Services Asia Pacific for Qualtrics, in her presentation, Getting to Happy, Productive, and Engaged Employees Faster. After that, we heard from Matt Daly of Zendesk in his presentation, Leveraging Technology to Evaluate Your Employee Experience. Following that, we had Tina Lundskis from Fonterra on streamlining recruitment, analytical AI tools that collect, process, and assess data to select ideal candidates. And then kicking off this afternoon, our most recent presentation, enabling an enhanced and competitive employee experience with intelligent HR support tools, from Philip Tutty, Head of APAC for SAP Litmos APAC, and Brett Archer, Capability Development Lead for SBS. All right, see all of you back here tomorrow for day 2 of HR Tech APAC Online 2019. It starts at 10 a.m. SGT with Jason McPherson, Chief People Scientist for Culture Amp, in his presentation, Using Predictive Analytics to Forecast Employee Turnover. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Have a great day, everyone.